Crows circled above a burning city as thick smoke darkened the sky. One crow landed on a pile of corpses and plucked a human eyeball from a lifeless face. Eventually, its gaze settled on something else. Inside a ruined building, crows feasted on bodies slumped around a dining table. The floor was littered with corpses and rubble. A young man stepped into a pool of fresh blood. He looked around in horror and wondered what was wrong with him. His eyes widened as he took in the ruined city and the countless human corpses scattered everywhere. He realized that he had caused all of it. But he never wanted things to end up this way. His body trembled as he wondered how everything had gone so wrong. Suddenly, a blazing light erupted around him. The light grew brighter and brighter, while his shadow stretched outward into writhing darkness. Then he jolted awake. He sat upright in bed and let out a sigh. It was the same nightmare again. An announcement echoed through the holding facility. It informed everyone that an instructor was visiting restricted level Esper number 1002, Ji Minghwan. He was ordered to prepare for interrogation immediately. The instructor entered the room and noticed that Minghwan was finally awake. He explained that the higher-ups always preferred eliminating potential threats before they became problems, and hoped Minghwan could understand their position. He added that not everyone in the facility was as tolerant as he was. The instructor smiled and told him that if he could quickly understand how dangerous his superpower was and cooperate with their investigations, life would become much easier for everyone. Minghwan asked what superpower he was talking about. He accused them of taking him away from the orphanage and locking him inside this dark facility while constantly claiming his ability was dangerous. He demanded to know what his power actually was because he did not know himself. The instructor assured him that their evaluation could not be wrong. He described Minghwan as the most dangerous rating sequence in existence, someone with the potential to destroy the entire world. He hoped Minghwan would believe him. The instructor mentioned that he had spoken with people from Minghwan's former orphanage. He learned that the other children used to call Minghwan a freak because he liked locking himself in rooms and wrapping his entire body in tissue paper. The caretakers also reported that Minghwan frequently sneaked into the computer room to play games. The instructor asked whether those stories were true. From behind the reinforced glass, Minghwan asked if the instructor really wanted to know the truth. The instructor replied that discovering the truth was the exact reason he wanted to speak with him. Minghwan demanded to be released first, promising that he would answer every question afterward. The instructor lowered his gaze. Then he explained that their tests suggested Minghwan's superpower was most likely that of a reality manipulation Esper. Since Minghwan enjoyed video games, they believed his ability would probably manifest in a game-related form. He theorized that the power might create a game-like world, or level, designed to guide and test him, helping him gradually learn how to control his superpower. Minghwan became irritated and asked whether the instructor was just a robot following a predetermined script. No matter what he said, the man simply kept talking to himself. The instructor let out a sigh and said that Minghwan still did not understand the situation he was in. Deciding there was no point continuing the discussion, he ended the conversation and instructed Minghwan to get some rest for the day. Minghwan told the instructor to wait. He said that he already understood his situation. After all, it had been an entire month since they locked him up. Then he demanded to know when he would finally be allowed to leave. The instructor replied that if he behaved properly and cooperated with their research, they would consider releasing him. Or perhaps he would be allowed to leave once he became an adult. Minghwan immediately realized there was a very high chance that he would never leave the laboratory alive. He feared that by the time they decided he was qualified to leave, he would already be dead. Filled with anger, he slammed his fist into the glass. Cracks instantly spread across its surface. At that moment, a system message appeared and welcomed him as Player 1. Minghwan looked up, then the glass completely shattered. He froze in surprise. The next moment, he found himself standing inside a strange digital void. He looked around and wondered where he was. Then he remembered what the instructor had said about his superpower, likely taking the form of a game. Minghwan immediately realized that this space was his superpower. A system notification appeared announcing that the infinite splitting game had loaded successfully. The character creation phase began. Streams of data rapidly gathered and formed a massive interface. The system explained that Espers were one of the 3 major superhuman races. They possessed unique powers heavily influenced by their upbringing and personal experiences. The first profile loaded under the name Gu Wenyu, an 11-year-old Asian boy with D-rank base attributes in strength, speed, and spirit. The profile described him as a student at Lijiang High School who lived in the capital city of Dragon Country. One day, he suddenly awakened the ability to generate and control pitch-black restraint straps. The The system further explained that from the moment his powers awakened, Wenyu gradually realized that the family members he had lived with for more than 10 years all seemed to be hiding unknown secrets. The digital world shifted once again as a second profile appeared. The system displayed another character option belonging to a race known as the Anomaly Envoy. Members of this race could obtain anomaly fragments from secret realms and wield the powers recorded within an anomaly catalog to fight. The second profile belonged to Andre, a 16-year-old Caucasian male. He possessed D-rank strength, D-rank speed, C-rank spirit, and an initial overall rating of D++. He lived in the capital of Denmark and had dreamed of bizarre stories and extraordinary adventures ever since childhood. One day, he received an invitation from the miniature garden in the mind, which led him into the world of anomaly envoys. The system prompted player 1 to choose one of the two identity files as his first game character in the real world. Manhwa smiled confidently and chose the Esper, Gu Wenyu. The system confirmed his selection and instructed him to choose a cultivation route. The available options were hero, villain, and morally gray. He selected the morally gray route. The system acknowledged his choice and began generating a unique cultivation system for the character. It then started creating his #1 game character in the real world, while simultaneously making the character's existence appear completely logical. As the creation process continued, Manhwa remembered that he originally came from an orphanage in Lijiang. He realized that he could use this character to investigate the organization responsible for capturing him. And by choosing a morally gray path, a character who wandered between the forces of light and darkness would gain even more opportunities to gather valuable intelligence. The system prepared to deploy the character into Lijiang, Dragon Country, and initiated the final countdown. When the countdown reached 1, darkness swallowed everything. Slowly, he opened his eyes, and immediately felt warm sunlight on his skin. The school bell rang. Students cheered as summer vacation officially began. Manhwa looked around in confusion. Then he quickly rushed to the window. The moment he looked outside, he froze. He realized that he was finally seeing the outside world again. Shock filled his face. He had truly escaped. Suddenly, someone threw an arm around Wenyu's shoulder, startling him. It was Li Qingping, Gu Wenyu's best friend. Qingping asked whether he wanted to come over to his house later. A system notification suddenly appeared, warning that the background memories of player character, #1, Gu Wenyu, were being loaded. It advised him to prepare for a massive influx of memories. Wenyu groaned as countless memories flooded into his mind, causing Qingping to jump in surprise. The system continued transferring the character's memories directly into his head. Qingping asked whether he was all right. After the process finished, the system confirmed that memory loading had been completed. Wenyu reassured Qingping that he was fine. He explained that his head only hurt because he had slept too long. He picked up his school bag and said that he had something important to do today. He promised to visit Qingping later once he had some free time. Wenyu waved goodbye and walked away, leaving Qingping completely confused. Qingping reminded him that summer vacation had just started and that they had plenty of time. Qingping called after him and asked where he was going. Wenyu headed up the stairs. He pushed open the rooftop door and tossed his bag onto the ground. Then he ran across the rooftop excitedly. At last, he accepted that he had truly escaped and that everything around him was real. Looking down at the city below, he realized that he was really back in Lijiang. He marveled at the fact that he had relied on his own superpower to return here. As he stared at the city skyline, he wondered whether this phenomenon counted as possession or creation. Had he inserted an entirely new person into the world's history? Thinking about the butterfly effect, he understood that even the smallest change could eventually trigger enormous consequences across the world. In the end, he concluded that the idea of brainwashing the entire planet through his ability was probably a little too ridiculous. Wenyu chuckled to himself. He realized that if anyone ever discovered the true nature of his power, his original body would never be allowed to leave the laboratory again. Using the memories that had just been loaded into his mind, he began to understand the exact nature of this body's superpower. He walked toward the edge of the rooftop, then, without hesitation, he jumped. Black mist poured from his arms. He focused and activated black restraint straps. Black energy wrapped around his body and lifted him into the air. Wenyu steadied himself and observed how naturally the shadowy straps responded to his movements. With a flick of his wrist, he gathered the dark energy into his hands and tested its control. Then he leaped forward and launched himself into the city skyline. A tendril shot downward and latched onto a nearby building. Using the momentum, he swung effortlessly between the skyscrapers. People on the streets noticed something moving high above them. Some wondered if it was a UFO. Others dismissed it, claiming they were probably just seeing things. Wenyu could not help enjoying the sensation. Although the ability was called pitch black restraint straps, it felt more like a combination of Spider-Man and Venom. He used the dark energy to race across the rooftops at incredible speed. Eventually, he arrived at the Lijing orphanage. After confirming that the building still stood exactly where he remembered it, he recalled all those nights spent staring out of the attic window at the city beyond, dreaming about the world outside. Back then, he had never once stepped beyond the orphanage grounds. The memories left him standing there in silence as he stared at the ground. Eventually, he turned and left. Later, he arrived at the Lijing Guyamai residential compound. It was the home of his current body. The concept felt completely foreign to him since he had never experienced what it was like to have a family. According to the memories he received, the household consisted of his parents, his older brother, his younger sister, and himself as Gu Wenyu. However, 5 years earlier, his mother, Su Ying, had been accidentally killed by Rainbow Wings, an elite organization of superpowered individuals affiliated with the United Nations. After repeated appeals led nowhere, his father, Gu Zhuoming, gradually fell into despair and had not returned home for the past 2 years. Wenyu realized that since his father was absent, the only family members he needed to deal with were his older brother, Gu Chie, and his younger sister, Su Zimai. Suddenly, something caught his attention. He stopped in front of a door. A glowing system panel suddenly appeared over the doorknob. Wenyu tapped the gear-shaped icon, and a luminous interface materialized before him. The display expanded into a full system layout containing an attribute panel, a quest panel, a list of unaccepted quests, a character-exclusive cultivation system, and a skill tree system. He quickly realized that it was the settings menu. The quest section immediately caught his interest. Before he could inspect it further, the doorknob clicked and the door opened. A voice greeted him and remarked that they had been waiting for him for a long time. At that exact moment, 3 main quests flashed across his system panel. The objectives instructed him to uncover the secrets being hidden by his best friend Li Qingping, his father Gu Zhuoming, and his younger sister Su Zimai. A voice suddenly snapped him out of his thoughts and asked why he was standing there like an idiot. Then another main quest appeared. The 4th quest instructed him to discover what his older brother, Gu Chie, was hiding. Standing in the doorway, Gu Chie held a bloody cleaver in one hand. Then he told Wenyu to stop standing around and hurry inside. Chie commented that Wenyu had returned early. He welcomed him home and mentioned that dinner was already prepared. Wenyu noticed the blood-stained cleaver still in Chie's hand, and wondered whether he had really just been cooking. As he approached the dining table, Wenyu thought the food looked surprisingly delicious. Chie then asked whether his younger sister had not come home with him. Wenyu replied that she was staying overnight at a classmate's house and told him not to worry. Although the answer came directly from Gu Wenyu's memories, he still had no idea what secret Su Zimai was actually hiding. Chie excused himself to get some rest and left Wenyu alone at the table. As Wenyu ate dinner, a system notification suddenly appeared and informed him about the current development progress of each skill branch. He immediately opened the skill tree. The first branch, Hidden, granted his restraint straps both vision and hearing. By attaching a restraint strap to the surface of a barrier such as a wall, he could clearly see and hear everything happening on the opposite side. The second branch, Madness, increased the maximum range of his restraint straps from 8 meters to 15 meters. The third branch, Ruthless, allowed him to read the attributes and abilities of humanoid targets through physical contact. Since he currently possessed only 1 skill point, he decided that the first option was the most useful. The ability to spy, track, and secretly investigate fit his current situation perfectly. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a breaking news report on television. The broadcast reported that an anomalist codenamed Blue Arc had recently stopped a superpowered crime at the Haiyinwei building in the city center. The perpetrator, a wanted criminal known as Giant Proof, had been successfully apprehended and transferred to the Anomalist Association. When you watched the report intently, he remembered that anomalists were the common name for superpowered individuals affiliated with official organizations. Most of them worked under the local Anomalist Association. He also recognized that Blue Arc was one of the most outstanding anomalists in Lijing. That realization made him wonder whether the organization that had imprisoned his original body was actually the Anomalist Association. Putting that thought aside, he returned to the system and spent his skill point to unlock the hidden branch ability, Restraint Strap Senses. The system notified him that permission to learn the next skill in the branch had been successfully unlocked. Suddenly, he could sense the entire layout of the room. It felt as if a complete map of the area had been projected directly into his mind. He realized that with a single thought, he could peer into almost any place he wanted. The system then notified him that he had received quest rewards. The rewards included 1 splitting point, 1 skill point, and 1 attribute point. The system explained that splitting points could be used to create brand new game characters in the real world. Skill points were used to develop a character's skill tree, while attribute points could be invested into the character panel to improve base stats. Wenyu quickly realized what this meant. In the future, he would be able to control multiple game characters at the same time. Suddenly, he heard someone speaking to Blue Arc through a walkie-talkie. The message reported a new mission involving a superpowered criminal at Lijiang Square. The target's codename was Green Wings. Wenyu immediately realized that the transmission was coming from Gu Qi's room. Inside the room, Qi complained that there was another mission already. He asked for a break, pointing out that he had only just returned home to rest after being injured during a battle with another superpowered criminal. His arms were still bleeding from fresh wounds. The person on the other end of the line replied that he had simply made too many enemies. Green Wings had specifically requested Blue Arc after taking a group of hostages, and for every 10 minutes Blue Arc failed to appear, Green Wings would execute 1 hostage. Chie looked annoyed. He had no choice but to stand up. Then he put on his Blue Arc suit. Wenyu found the situation amusing. Blue Arc was actually his older brother, Gu Chie. The dispatcher urged Blue Arc to hurry. They warned that the criminals were preparing to execute the first hostage, and a public execution would severely damage the reputation of their local association branch. Now fully armored, Chie replied that he understood. Chie instructed his team through the communication channel to stall the enemy and protect the hostages until he arrived. Then he rushed through the city at incredible speed. Wenyu was impressed that Kie could still move so quickly despite his injuries. A system notification suddenly appeared, confirming that Main Quest 1 had been completed after he uncovered Gu Chie's secret. Immediately afterward, a new main quest appeared. The system instructed him to establish a cooperative relationship with Blue Arc and build connections within the Anomalist Association. Wenyu complained that the system was forcing him into an incredibly troublesome situation. At 10:20 p.m., police forces had completely surrounded Lijiang Square in the city center. Everyone anxiously waited for Blue Arc to arrive. A reporter provided a live update, explaining that Green Wings was becoming increasingly agitated, which placed the hostages in a dangerous position. The authorities had no idea whether Blue Arc would arrive in time. Inside the occupied building, a frightened child clung tightly to his mother. Armed criminals surrounded the hostages. Meanwhile, the monstrous villain known as Green Wings hovered in the sky and loudly demanded that Blue Arc reveal himself. He threatened to execute the first hostage if the hero failed to appear within 10 seconds. Then he began counting down. 10, 9, 8. His voice echoed throughout the square, but no one answered. As the countdown reached 2, a figure suddenly appeared before him. Blue Arc had arrived. Green Wings grinned and mockingly welcomed Lijiang City's beloved hero. Blue Arc immediately demanded to know what he wanted. Green Wings proposed a trade. If Blue Arc surrendered and came with him immediately, he would release all the hostages. Blue Arc rejected the offer without hesitation. He declared that he would save the hostages first and arrest Green Wings afterward. Green Wings laughed. Then he revealed that bombs had already been attached to the hostages. Knowing that Blue Arc was faster than his subordinates, he had prepared for exactly this situation. He further explained that accomplices hidden among the crowd carried detonators. The moment Blue Arc made a move, they would trigger the explosives and kill everyone. Green Wings taunted him by saying that a few dead hostages should mean nothing to a hero like him. Blue Arc clenched his fists in frustration. His body was still injured from a previous battle. Under normal circumstances, he would have been confident in disarming the bombs before the accomplices could react. But in his current condition, he could not guarantee it. One of the hostages begged Blue Arc not to surrender. Green Wings immediately ordered the hostage to shut up. The child shrank back in fear. Green Wings then declared that he had completely run out of patience. Since Blue Arc continued to hesitate, he ordered one of his accomplices to detonate the bombs. Blue Arc desperately shouted for him not to do it. Suddenly, Green Wings looked confused. None of his men responded. A gun slipped from one accomplice's hand and clattered onto the floor. Dark purple restraints had wrapped tightly around the man's neck. Both Blue Arc and Green Wings were stunned. Then the remaining accomplices cried out in alarm as identical restraints wrapped around them and lifted them into the air. The hostages stared upward in confusion. There, hanging upside down from the ceiling, was Wenyu. He wore a masked costume and was surrounded by swirling dark purple energy. A smirk spread across his face as he looked down at the criminals. Now that Gu Qiye's identity as Blue Ark had been exposed, Ji Minghuan had arrived at the perfect moment to save the hostages. Greenwings demanded to know whether the intruder belonged to Blue Ark's team. He threatened to detonate the bombs on the hostages if anyone made a reckless move. Blue Ark immediately replied that the stranger was not with them. Greenwings warned the newcomer to stay back, or he would trigger the explosives. Blue Ark repeated that he had no connection to him. The villain then demanded to know the stranger's identity. At that moment, a system notification appeared. It informed Wen Yu that his character's exclusive cultivation system was the social superstar system. By establishing cooperative relationships with superhuman individuals, he could obtain rewards through this exclusive cultivation path. Wen Yu muttered that the quest sounded difficult, but he would still give it a try. The current objective for Cultivation Quest 1 was to establish a friendly cooperative relationship with a single Esper, regardless of whether they were a hero or a villain. The reward was 1 attribute point. Greenwings shouted that whoever he was, he needed to leave immediately, otherwise the bombs would be detonated, and the explosion would not only kill the hostages, but also devastate half of Lijing Square. But our boy didn't even pay attention to Greenwings. He just opened a book titled Social Master Advancement. Reading the first page, he learned that the first step of socializing was acting like the same type of person as the other party. To build affinity and shorten the distance between them, he needed to think from their perspective. Wen Yu immediately understood. Then he told Greenwings to go ahead and detonate the bombs if he had the courage. Closing the book, he added that Greenwings was obviously not stupid enough to actually carry out the threat. Wen Yu pointed out that once the hostages died, Greenwings would lose every bargaining chip he had. He smugly asked whose situation would become worse after that. Greenwings became furious. He demanded that Wen Yu release his subordinate immediately, or he would kill him. Wen Yu flipped to the next section of the book. According to it, the second step of socializing was satisfying the other party's needs to make them happy. Wen Yu nodded and agreed to release the hostage. With a snap of his fingers, the dark restraints tightened around the captured thug's neck. The thug screamed in agony. Greenwings was caught completely off guard. Blood dripped onto the floor, as Wen Yu reminded him that he had done exactly what he asked. The dark energy held up the thug's severed head as it faced Greenwings. Then Wen Yu asked why he looked so unhappy. The decapitated body collapsed to its knees while blood continued pouring from the neck. Blue Ark stared at him in complete shock. Greenwings cursed furiously. This villain didn't expect that someone would be more evil than him. Wen Yu suddenly realized that he might have done something wrong. After a moment of thought, he decided to abandon the book's advice. Villains were simply too difficult to get along with. He concluded that socializing with righteous people would probably be much easier. Dark energy suddenly spread throughout the room. The hostages watched it nervously. A woman clutching her child panicked as the severed heads of Greenwing's subordinates rolled across the floor in front of her. Wen Yu pointed out that those men had been pointing guns at the hostages just moments ago and asked whether they felt any resentment toward them. He then announced that it was their turn now. Since the tables had been turned, Wen Yu believed everything was perfectly fair. In his mind, this definitely made him look like an ally of justice. But the woman immediately broke down and screamed. A system warning suddenly appeared. It informed Wen Yu that his roleplay anchor shift rate had increased from 0% to 30%. The warning explained that exceeding 70% carried a chance of entering a berserk state. A scenario hint also reminded him that his character was designated as morally gray. If he wanted to gain the trust of righteous characters, his methods needed to be far more peaceful. Wen Yu realized that socializing was much harder than he expected. He wondered what he should do next. Then he came up with an idea. To fix the situation, he decided to use his restraints to reconnect the criminals' severed heads. Dark energy immediately wrapped around the corpses. Their severed heads were pulled back into place and reattached to their bodies. Wen Yu nodded in satisfaction. Now it looked as though their heads had never been removed at all. Wen Yu was pleased with the result, but the rescued civilians were horrified by the gruesome scene. Another system notification appeared. It warned that the roleplay anchor shift rate had increased from 30% to 40%. The system once again reminded him that exceeding 70% carried a chance of entering a berserk state. Trying to calm the frightened child, Wen Yu confidently explained that everything they had just seen was merely a holographic special effect. He assured them that the heads were actually still attached to the bodies. Then he even encouraged the child to take a closer look if he did not believe him. Unfortunately, at that exact moment, one of the restraints loosened. The severed head immediately fell off. Blood sprayed everywhere in front of the child. The child stared blankly for a moment, then burst into tears. Wenyu felt a headache coming on. Another system warning appeared. His roleplay anchor shift rate had increased again, rising from 40% to 42%. Wenyu insisted that the whole thing had just been an accident. Deep down, he admitted that socializing was far more stressful than he expected. He raised his hand once more, determined to fix the situation properly this time. Before he could do anything, Blue Arc grabbed his wrist and told him that was enough. He then asked who Wenyu really was. Wenyu replied that he was a morally gray character, neither a hero nor a villain, and preferred not to be labeled. Even so, he told Blue Arc to trust him, claiming they would become very good friends in the future. Blue Arc pointed out that he had killed the thugs. Wenyu asked if he would have preferred the hostages to die instead. Blue Arc firmly replied that murder was still murder and that Wenyu would have to face the law for it. Wenyu found the answer boring and assumed he was only saying that because the cameras were still rolling. He suggested they speak in private. Wenyu condensed his energy into a small orb and tossed it toward Blue Arc. Blue Arc caught it. Wenyu asked if he was willing to meet. He stepped off the edge, and as he fell, he told Blue Arc that whether they met again or not was entirely his choice. Blue Arc simply watched him go. He glanced down at the dark purple orb resting in his hand. The dark energy transformed into an arrow and pointed toward a distant location. Green Wings grew irritated at being treated as though he didn't exist. Blue Arc advised him to surrender peacefully, especially since the 5 accomplices hiding on the rooftop had already been taken down by his teammates and their detonators were now secured. He added that the entire area was surrounded by members of the Anomalist Association and that escape was no longer possible. Green Wings brought up the hostages and argued that he still had leverage. Little did he know, he was already surrounded. Blue Arc told him to take a closer look. Green Wings was stunned when he realized the area was already empty. That realization made him curse loudly. Game over. A minute later, blue lightning streaked across the streets. Blue Arc raced after someone at incredible speed. He suddenly stopped and said, "Come out." A swirl of dark energy appeared, and a voice remarked that he knew Blue Arc would follow him. Wenyu emerged upside down from the darkness. Blue Arc demanded to know his background. Wenyu replied that he currently had neither a code name nor a proper name, though he was certain he would receive one soon. He added that this was part of the charm of being a public figure, since people would always create various aliases out of either love or fear. He then asked Blue Arc if he was curious about what he was reading. He revealed an old newspaper article about a tragic accident from 5 years earlier where a mother had been accidentally killed by the Anomalist Association. He explained that the grieving father had repeatedly sued the government without success and had never even learned which anomalist was responsible because the culprit belonged to Rainbow Wings, an organization whose members' identities were kept strictly hidden from the public. He then addressed Blue Arc by his real name, Gu Chie. Wenyu revealed that Chie had been only 13 years old when he watched his mother die right before his eyes. Chie was visibly shaken. Wenyu expressed sympathy for Chie, who had grown up without a mother's love. He concluded that ever since that day, Chie had carried a deep hatred toward anomalists who abused their power while claiming to uphold justice. He continued, explaining that this painful past was the very reason Chie became an anomalist. He claimed that Chie wanted to earn enough prestige and recommendations within the Anomalist Association to eventually enter the inner ranks of the United Nations organization known as Rainbow Wings. His ultimate goal was to find the anomalist who had casually taken his mother's life. Chie dismissed everything as complete nonsense, though his fists tightened unconsciously. Wenyu proposed a partnership. He promised to help Chie join Rainbow Wings and assist him in finding the person responsible for his mother's death. He added that together, they could carry out a magnificent act of revenge. Wenyu claimed that in return, he only needed Chie's help with one small matter. Chie demanded to know what that matter was. Instead of answering, Wenyu advised him that it was better left a secret for now, warning that learning about it might bring a fatal disaster upon him. He added that he would be very active throughout the city and asked Chie to look after him from now on. Chie told him to wait and demanded to know how he had learned his identity. Wenyu simply replied that it was very simple. He stated that he could see the true face hidden beneath every mask. Chie found the claim absurd. Furious, he unleashed his power and demanded to know if Wenyu seriously believed he could not bring him down. Wenyu immediately became alarmed. Blue Arc suddenly launched a surprise attack at Wenyu with a powerful strike. The collision unleashed a massive explosion of energy. Wenyu leaped back and told Blue Arc to stop acting tough. He pointed out the serious wounds on Blue Arc's waist and neck, saying it would be wiser to seek treatment immediately. He then disappeared and bid Blue Ark goodbye. Soon, heavy rain began pouring over the city. Blue Ark stood silently beneath the storm, while blood dripped from his hand. Meanwhile, thunder rumbled above the Guimai residential compound as flashes of lightning illuminated the sky. Someone stepped inside. Wenyu noted that Blue Ark still had not returned. He knew it could not have been easy for him, considering he had suffered severe injuries and was still carrying out his mission. At the same time, a system notification appeared before Wenyu. Phase 2 of the main quest required him to establish a cooperative relationship with Blue Ark and build connections within the Anomalist Association. The mission was still incomplete. He felt that making Blue Ark trust him was almost impossible. Still, he had gained something. The first phase of the main quest, which involved investigating Chi's secret, had officially been completed. As a reward, he received 1 splitting point, 1 skill point, and 1 attribute point. While sitting on his bed surrounded by holographic screens, he wondered what nickname the public would eventually give him. He guessed they might call him things like Alien or Bandage Freak. He sincerely hoped they would not saddle him with a lame nickname. At that moment, he regretted not giving himself a proper codename earlier. Wenyu opened his character status window. Gu Wenyu is a 17-year-old Esper-type character with an overall C rank evaluation. His strength, speed, and spirit attributes are all rated C, making him a balanced but average fighter. Due to his growing fame in the real world, the system has informed him that he will soon receive a nickname. He currently has no event cards and has 1 unassigned attribute point that he can use to improve his stats. The entire system reminded him of an online game. He reviewed his options, knowing he could assign the point to strength, speed, or spirit. Increasing strength would improve his overall physical constitution and enhance the power of his restraint traps. Increasing speed would boost both his neural reaction speed and the activation speed of his restraint traps. Lastly, increasing spirit would strengthen his mental power and improve the durability of his restraint traps. In the world of martial arts, speed often determined victory. Therefore, he assigned the point to speed. Not only would it allow him to strike first in battle, but it would also reduce the chances of being killed instantly. The system displayed that his speed attribute had increased from C rank to C+ rank, while both strength and spirit remained at C rank. Afterward, he opened the character skill tree. He entered a digital grid. A golden beam of light struck the center. He examined the pitch-black restraint strap skill tree, which was divided into 3 branches: Hidden, Madness, and Ruthless. The first branch, Hidden, showed that restraint strap senses had already been learned, with restraint strap truth listed as the next skill to unlock. The second branch, Madness, led to a skill known as restraint strap extension, while the third branch, Ruthless, led to restraint strap detection. The later skills in each branch would only be revealed after learning the preceding ones. Restraint strap. Truth could force others to speak the truth, functioning much like a lie detector. Meanwhile, restraint strap detection would allow him to obtain information about an opponent's abilities simply by touching them with his restraint straps. As for restraint strap extension, it was obviously a skill path focused on increasing his overall combat strength. However, he decided that improving his combat power was not his top priority. Instead, he focused on finding ways to protect his life and gather valuable clues. He spent 1 skill point to successfully learn restraint strap detection from the Ruthless branch, granting him the ability to instantly read the attributes and abilities of any human or similar creature he touched. A system notification informed him that the learning permissions for the next skill in the Ruthless branch had been unlocked. Since he had already learned restraint strap detection, the next available skill was restraint strap suppression. According to the description, after using the restraint straps to bind an anomalous entity, he could temporarily suppress the target's supernatural abilities. He thought the skill sounded extremely useful. However, he was unsure about the exact degree of restraint required. He wondered whether he needed to bind an enemy's entire body, or if simply tying a knot around their calf would be enough. Since there were too many possibilities, he decided that once he learned the skill, he would find someone and slowly test every rule and limitation himself. He then noticed another notification. The system informed him that he could create a new game character. A system notification explained that his splitting progress was still incomplete. He needed 3 splitting points to create another character, but he currently possessed only 1. Realizing that he only needed 2 more points, he decided that once he obtained a second character as backup, he would make his move on the orphanage. Suddenly, electricity crackled outside the room. He was startled. Someone reached for his doorknob. Then the door swung open, revealing his brother clad in armored gear. Chie stared at him, and seeing him asleep, he assumed he had simply been overthinking things. An announcement echoed throughout a containment facility. Restricted Level Esper. Number 1002, Ji Mingwan, was ordered to prepare for an interrogation with a visiting instructor. The door opened. The instructor asked whether Mingwan was interested in hearing about several espers who had recently appeared outside. He smiled and addressed him as little brother Ji Mingwan. Mingwan lay resting on the bed with his back facing the glass. A faint smile spread across his face. Then he pretended to wake up and greeted the instructor good evening. The instructor remarked that he seemed quite energetic. However, he then questioned how Mingwan knew it was nighttime. Mingwan casually replied that the instructor often disturbed his sleep at night, so it was an easy guess. The instructor smiled at the answer. He apologized and explained that he only wanted to ask him a question. The instructor then pulled out a photograph of Wenyu. He asked whether the person in the photo could possibly be Mingwan. Mingwan's second character had not even been created yet the instructor had already come looking for him. It was still unclear whether his ability had been exposed. Mingwan looked at the image. He asked the instructor whether he seriously looked like that ugly bastard and demanded to know the Esper's name. The instructor explained that after discussions among the people outside, they had temporarily given the Esper a code name. Black Pupa. He added that the photo had immediately reminded him of Ji Mingwan. Mingwan told him that he could have just called him ugly, directly, instead of beating around the bush. He said he could handle that much. The instructor recalled how Mingwan used to wrap himself in toilet paper so often that a nurse at the orphanage had even taken pictures of him. Mingwan brushed it off as something foolish he had done as a child. He still could not understand why he had been arrested and argued that after a whole month, they should already know he was just an ordinary person. The instructor revealed that someone had once made a prophecy claiming that he would destroy the world. Mingwan laughed and asked whether that person had been watching too many blockbuster movies. He pointed out that the world was not so easy to destroy, especially when he could not even hurt himself without the collar knocking him unconscious. The instructor merely smiled and shrugged. Mingwan then demanded to know who had spread the prophecy and asked to meet them face to face. The instructor admitted that such a meeting could not be arranged. Mingwan asked why. The instructor explained that they had never actually met that person and had no idea who they were. However, this mysterious individual had accurately predicted numerous major events in the past. Although the prophet had helped them prevent several large-scale disasters, they had never made direct contact because the person never gave them the opportunity. Seeing how serious the instructor looked made Mingwan realize he was not lying, yet he still considered the idea of himself destroying the world completely ridiculous. The instructor mentioned that Kong Yuling would arrive in 5 minutes. Mingwan asked if that was really true. The instructor offered to leave so the two of them could talk in private. Mingwan realized it had been a long time since he had last seen her. Soon, a digital portal appeared on the wall. A girl stepped out from the portal. He watched her arrival. Mingwan was stunned. He had met her 3 years ago at the orphanage. Back then, the nurses said a new child had arrived. Rumors described her as a frighteningly pale mixed-race girl who was both deaf and mute. Because of her arrival, all the children were forced to learn sign language beforehand. Some of the kids blamed her for the extra work and immediately disliked her. Yuling liked wearing a white linen dress. She always carried a sketchbook and a pencil, which made the other children see her as a weirdo. Later, Mingwan learned that she preferred writing in her notebook so that others would not have to learn sign language just for her. She never wanted to burden anyone. To him, she was a sensible girl who hated troubling others. Mingwan, however, was the complete opposite. He was energetic, constantly caused trouble, and loved running around everywhere. He felt that both of them were viewed as outsiders. Until one night, while they were sitting on the rooftop, he told her that the last time he saw his parents, they had locked him inside a closet and told him to wait quietly because they would come back soon. At the time, he foolishly believed them. Even after arriving at the orphanage, he would sometimes lock himself away, still hoping his parents would return for him. But they never came back. As he grew older, he realized he no longer needed them to come looking for him. But Yuling was different. He wanted to remain by her side forever because, when he was with her, he never had to hide his true self or pretend to be someone he wasn't. She sat quietly beside him with her sketchbook. Mingwan became emotional. Suddenly, she tapped him on the shoulder. She raised her sketchbook and asked whether she could rely on him. For the first time in his life, Mingwan felt that someone truly needed him. He smiled. He swore that he would protect Yuling because he had promised that she could rely on him. Deep down, he feared she would abandon him just like his parents had. But Yuling wrote that she would never leave him behind. Back in the present, Minghwan felt relieved to finally see her again. He happily told her that he was glad she was safe. She smiled back at him. Minghwan tried to say something else, but his collar suddenly released a violent surge of electricity. He screamed in pain as the shock forced him onto his knees. Yuling stared at him in horror. He continued screaming loudly. The two childhood friends had finally reunited, yet Minghwan suddenly collapsed in agony. Whether it was an accident or part of a conspiracy remained unknown. A warning announced that physical contact was prohibited and that another violation would result in a stun. Yuling cried out when Minghwan was shocked. He quickly reassured her that the electricity would not kill him. He explained that he had already gotten used to being electrocuted after triggering the collar many times before. He then asked whether the people there had instructed her to interrogate him before allowing her to see him. She wrote that those people had told her to ask what his superpower was. He worried that she might be punished afterward because the instructors would never allow such a direct question about his abilities. He told her that he did not know what his superpower was because there was nothing there to begin with. Deep down, he apologized for lying to her, knowing that neither of them would ever be allowed to leave if he revealed the truth. She wrote that she understood. She looked sad. Then she showed him another message saying that she had missed him very much. He smiled at her. He was about to say something, but a notification informed them that the meeting time was over and ordered her to be taken away. The instructor told him that if he behaved well, they could meet again in the future. He then asked whether seeing her safe had finally convinced him that they had never harmed her. Minghwan criticized them for imprisoning an 11-year-old girl and asked whether they felt proud simply because they had not physically hurt her. The instructor admitted that he often forgot the boy was only 12 years old. He said Minghwan always acted like someone hiding behind a mask because ordinary children did not think so deeply. Minghwan then asked if he could ask a question, and the instructor agreed. He then asked why they did not simply kill him if they truly believed he would one day destroy the world. He wondered whether they would regret it if his powers eventually went out of control and destroyed the laboratory. The instructor asked if he wanted to hear the truth. Minghwan told him to go ahead. The instructor explained that espers on the verge of death could unleash terrifying potential far beyond their normal limits. Since nobody knew what might happen if they tried to kill him, they had chosen to control him instead. Minghwan remarked that knowing he would not be secretly eliminated allowed him to sleep peacefully at night. The instructor smirked, before ending the conversation and telling him to get some rest. After the door closed, Minghwan quietly stared into the darkness. Meanwhile, the Guimai block in Lijing remained silent beneath the night sky. A system notification welcomed the player back and announced that his consciousness had returned to game character number 1, Gu Wenyu. Another notification informed him that due to his growing popularity, his codename had officially been updated. Gu Wenyu received the codename Black Pupa. He found it amusing that people had already given him a codename in less than half a day. Wenyu began planning his next steps one at a time. His primary objective was to locate the laboratory. After that, he intended to rescue both his original body and Yuling. As he gazed over the city at sunrise, he prepared himself for the possibility that he might have to resort to extreme measures if his plan failed. He recalled the memory of Yuling smiling warmly at him. He resolved to slaughter everyone if his plan failed. Suddenly, the sound of a turning doorknob shattered the silence. He froze in shock after realizing that someone had returned. A girl carrying a tennis racket walked into the room. She scanned the surroundings and looked toward the bed. Meanwhile, he hid completely beneath the blanket. Fortunately, his reaction had been fast enough. He hoped he had not been discovered. Footsteps approached his bed. The blanket was suddenly pulled away, revealing Suzy Mai standing above him with a raised tennis racket. Before he could react, a new main quest appeared. The system instructed him to investigate what his younger sister, Suzy Mai, was hiding. Suzy Mai stood over Wenyu while he slept, holding a raised tennis racket. Wenyu was startled. He quickly stopped her and asked what she was trying to do. Zimai scolded him for sleeping until 3 in the afternoon and called him lazy. Wenyu recalled that Suzy Mai was his 16-year-old younger sister and a first-year high school student. The body he currently occupied belonged to 17-year-old Gu Wenyu, who was in his second year of high school, and also had a 19-year-old older brother who was a college freshman. Despite being the middle child, Wenyu looked the youngest among the 3 siblings because of his frail appearance. He remembered why Zimai's surname was different. Their family followed the tradition that sons inherited their father's surname while daughters inherited their mother's. Zimai scoffed and said she could not be bothered with him before turning around and leaving. Left alone, Wenyu sat on the bed in confusion. A live television broadcast covered a news report regarding a hostage situation involving the Green Wings organization. An unknown Esper had intervened, killing 5 criminals and rescuing 5 hostages without causing any civilian casualties. Wenyu walked downstairs as the report continued. Zimai sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, completely ignoring him. The reporter added that witnesses claimed the Esper had been wrapped in black restraints and hanging upside down like a pupa. The Anomalist Association had already sealed off the area to analyze the remaining substances left behind. On the television, the anchor announced that the vice president of the Lijiang branch of the Anomalist Association would provide further details. It continued with an update from the Anomalist Association's expert panel. Based on the individual's appearance and supernatural abilities, the new Esper had officially been designated as Black Pupa and was temporarily classified as a B-rank observation target. Wenyu realized that Espers also operated under a ranking system. Before Chie returned home, he decided to use his restraint strap detection skill on Zimai to discover what abilities she possessed, hoping it might help him complete his main quest immediately. The system explained the mechanics of his newly learned skill, restraint strap detection. By using physical restraint straps to make contact with a human target, the user could instantly view a detailed analysis of that person's attributes and abilities. Wenyu secretly released a dark restraint strap toward Zimai while she was distracted by her phone. The dark energy quietly crept behind her. It drew closer. Zimai immediately sensed it. Wenyu was startled. She shot him a suspicious look. Wenyu awkwardly offered her a can of cola. Internally, Zimai wondered whether the sudden feeling of danger she had sensed was merely an illusion. Wenyu noticed that main quest 3 was still incomplete. He wondered if it was because he had not personally witnessed her abilities yet, or because he still had not identified her true identity among the demon hunters. The system panel finally revealed the target's information. Zimai was identified as a Tier 1 exorcist with the talent Magic Hand, which was bound to the Icewax demon. She possessed D-rank strength, C++ rank speed, and a B-rank superhuman race classification. Wenyu remembered that the game had previously mentioned 3 major superhuman races. Since he was already familiar with Espers and Anomaly Envoys, he realized that the final race was the Exorcists. At that moment, Chie arrived home and commented that it was rare to see the two of them together. He cheerfully announced that he would cook dinner. He told them to wait until after dinner before heading out. Wenyu observed Chie. Despite being heavily injured the previous night, he now appeared completely fine. Wenyu assumed that either Espers recovered extremely quickly, or the Anomalist Association possessed exceptional medical technology. Zimai mentioned that their father would be returning that night. Chie coldly replied that their father could come back if he wanted. Sighing, Zimai wondered whether her older brother and father would start arguing again, despite not seeing each other for 2 years. Wenyu simply replied that nobody knew. Wenyu later checked the official website of the Superhuman Association and learned that the United Nations classified Espers according to their danger level from highest to lowest. The T0 sequence was restricted level. The T1 sequence was disaster level. The T2 sequence was dragon level. The T3 sequence was chief level. The T4 sequence was standard level. And the T5 sequence was harmless level. The lowest rank was the T5 sequence, harmless level, which consisted of Espers whose abilities posed little to no threat and whose personal freedom was not restricted. They could work ordinary jobs and live normal lives. Above that was the T4 sequence, standard level, which was assigned to Espers who were stronger than the harmless tier, but possessed relatively average abilities overall. The T3 sequence, chief level, consisted of the elite among Espers. Meanwhile, the T2 sequence, dragon level, represented the backbone of the Superhuman Association. For the T1 sequence, disaster level, only Espers who reached this rank during the association's ability assessment were eligible to enter the candidate list for Rainbow Wings membership. The highest classification was the T0 sequence, restricted level. According to official records, only one restricted level Esper had ever appeared in history. This individual was confirmed dead, and all related information remained strictly classified. Wenyu wondered if those records were referring to him. He felt that his life inside the laboratory was no different from being dead. But if the association was truly referring to him, then the laboratory imprisoning him might actually belong to the Superhuman Association itself. If that assumption turned out to be true, then waging war against the laboratory would mean directly opposing the United Nations. In that case, the disaster-level Espers of Rainbow Wings would undoubtedly be mobilized to stop him. He pondered the situation carefully. Instead of fighting alone, he considered using this family as his personal thugs. He figured that if he properly utilized his identity within this fake family, guiding them would not be difficult. Because of their mother's death, they already hated Rainbow Wings. He realized it would be easy to unite them under a common goal. With their connections and strength, they could become a formidable fighting force. His thoughts were interrupted when Chie called out to him. Chie asked whether he had stayed home the entire night. Zimai added that he had been acting strangely all day. Wenyu was caught completely off guard. While he had been busy planning his next move, his fake siblings had already begun to suspect him. Wenyu wondered whether everyone was suspicious of him. He explained that he had fallen asleep right after dinner the previous night. Chie asked whether he had heard any strange noises during the night. Wenyu replied that he had heard nothing and asked if a thief had broken in. Chie brushed the matter aside and told him to forget about it. As for our MC's sister, Wenyu asked Zimai why she kept staring at him like that. She pointed out that he was talking more than usual, noting that he normally stayed locked away in his room. He jokingly asked whether he should leave. She called him a pig for falling asleep immediately after dinner the previous night and sleeping all the way until that afternoon. Chie added that it was actually a good thing for him to come out and talk more. He warned Wenyu not to inherit their father's temper by completely ignoring his own family. While preparing dinner, Chie told him to think more about how their mother had treated them and how warm the family atmosphere used to be. Wenyu quietly reminded himself to speak less so he would not expose his identity. He realized that he did not truly understand how normal families interacted. During his 3 years at the orphanage, Yuling had been the closest thing he had to family, but their relationship had been more like best friends than actual family. Suddenly, someone knocked loudly on the front door. Zimai went to answer it. She opened the door. Her expression immediately darkened. She turned back and informed Chie that their father had returned. Chie did not respond, while Wenyu simply watched. Their father had a sharp and intimidating gaze. At that moment, the system issued Main Quest 2 and instructed him to investigate what his father, Gu Zhuoming, was hiding. Wenyu observed him carefully. Zhuoming was a middle-aged man who looked exhausted. He noticed that both Zimai and Chie were awkwardly keeping their heads down and minding their own business. Sensing an opportunity, he quietly released a strand of dark energy toward his father. The moment the energy reached him, he sensed it. To Zhuoming, it felt as though a massive serpent was lurking behind him. He immediately reacted and grabbed Wenyu's wrist. He realized that the older a person was, the wiser they tended to be. Wenyu immediately understood that Zhuoming was far more vigilant than Zimai. The system notified him that the passive skill, Restraint Strap Control, had activated through physical contact. Chie immediately stopped their father and questioned what he was doing. Wenyu claimed that he had only wanted to brush some dust off his father's shoulder. Zhuoming stared at him. He apologized and released his grip. He silently reflected that spending the past 2 years constantly walking the line between life and death had left his nerves exhausted and overly sensitive. A simple touch on the shoulder from his son had caused him to react far more intensely than necessary. Even so, he could not shake off the strange sensation he had felt. It had felt as though a snake had suddenly slithered out of a dark forest and onto his shoulder, its deep green eyes glowing in the darkness as they stared directly into his soul. Wenyu let out a sigh of relief after avoiding suspicion. A system prompt confirmed the completion of Main Quest 2, which required him to investigate what his father was hiding. As a reward, he received 1 splitting point, 1 skill point, and 1 character point. However, Main Quest 2 immediately updated. His next objective was to establish a cooperative relationship with the supercriminal Ghost Clock and expand his network among evil espers. Wenyu was shocked when he saw the name Ghost Clock. He realized that the supercriminal Ghost Clock was actually Zhuoming. He recalled Ghost Clock's profile from earlier. The supercriminal possessed A++ rank strength, a rank speed, and a rank spirit. Ghost Clock's ability allowed him to summon a 3-meter-tall clock tower and separate his shadow from the ground to act as a clone with all 3 attributes. However, the shadow could not travel too far from the original body. Every 30 seconds, the clock tower's hour hand would randomly point to a number between 1 and 12, granting different ability enhancements to Ghost Clock's shadow, depending on the selected hour. Wenyu remembered that over the past 2 years, Ghost Clock had only targeted abusive espers and had never harmed ordinary civilians. Every attempt by the Superhuman Association to arrest him had ended in failure. Ghost Clock would often leave behind a single sentence mocking them, stating that they were not good enough and challenging them to send someone from Rainbow Wings instead. Everything, finally, made sense to him. He now understood why Ghost Clock was so obsessed with drawing out members of Rainbow Wings and why Zhuoming had not returned home for exactly 2 years. Zhuoming had deliberately used himself as bait to lure out the 2 Rainbow Wings members responsible for his wife's death so that he could personally tear them apart. Ironically, Chie's approach directly opposed Zhuoming's plan. To find the Rainbow Wings member responsible for their mother's accidental death, Chie chose to join the Superhuman Association. He intended to become a powerful Esper so he could earn a recommendation into the inner circle of Rainbow Wings and confront his enemy face to face. Even though they shared the same goal, father and son stood on opposite sides. They were destined to wear different masks and one day slaughter each other like trapped beasts in a gladiatorial arena. Chie suddenly warned his father not to bring his dangerous habits back into the house. He angrily pointed out that Zhuoming had disappeared on his own for 2 years, and his constant defensive reactions made it impossible for the family to trust him. Chie added that his father had not changed at all since their mother died. He accused Zhuoming of caring only about the person who was already gone while completely ignoring the pain of his own children. He demanded to know whether his father had ever considered that they suffered just as much from their mother's death. Zimai simply listened, as Chie accused him of turning a blind eye while every child hid their own emotions just to make him feel better. He said Zhuoming treated them like they did not exist. He asked if his father knew how many times Zimai cried after he left and how many times she begged for her daddy to come back. Zhuoming remained silent. Chie added that he never should have told her he would return. Chie bitterly declared that the living meant nothing to him and that he valued dead family members more. He mockingly told Zhuoming to spend the rest of his life hugging a dead person's coffin. Zhuoming asked Chie if he had already forgotten his mother. This immediately enraged Chie. He grabbed Zhuoming by the collar and told him to shut up. Chie demanded to know what his father knew about everything he had done. And while they were having their confrontation, Zimai was already trembling. She didn't want any of that. Wenyu clicked his tongue. He shouted at them to stop. Chie was stunned. Zhuoming simply turned toward Wenyu. Wenyu glared back at them. Our boy stopped them and revealed that Zimai had run away from home. After glaring at them, he stated that he would bring her back. Outside, near the train tracks, Wenyu felt extremely uncomfortable dealing with the absurd family drama. He took out his phone and decided it was the perfect opportunity to move forward with his next plan. Back at their residence, an anonymous account suddenly sent Chie a message, asking whether he believed their words now and whether he felt any suspicion toward his father. Chie stared at the screen. Before asking who they were, he asked Black Pupa who he really was, Wenyu thought that communicating under this codename would leave a stronger impression. Chie recalled what Black Pupa looked like. He asked whether he wasn't worried about having someone trace his IP address. Wenyu felt there was no need to worry, since any trace would only lead directly back to his own home address. Chie admitted that his father had been acting strangely lately and asked what he was hiding. Wenyu replied that he would consider revealing the truth once their cooperation had progressed further. Chie asked one final question. He directly asked whether Black Pupa was his father. Wenyu nearly choked on his drink when he read that message. Internally, he complained that he treated Chie like an older brother, yet Chie treated him like a father. Moving on, Chie asked what Black Pupa actually wanted from him. Wenyu's expression turned serious, as he replied that it was a secret. He added that if he truly intended to be an enemy, he could have exposed Blue Ark's identity and turned his younger siblings into vulnerabilities. Chie acknowledged the point. Although he still did not trust Black Pupa, he agreed to cooperate temporarily for mutual benefit. A system notification appeared, confirming the completion of the second phase of Main Quest 1. Wenyu received 1 splitting point, 1 skill point, and 1 attribute point as rewards. He celebrated his success out loud. The main quest was immediately updated. His next objective was to deepen Blue Ark's trust through their first official cooperation. A system hint also informed him that he had accumulated 3 splitting points, allowing him to enter the character creation phase and create his second game character in the real world. Zimai suddenly appeared and asked about his success. Wenyu jumped in surprise. He replied that it was nothing, and that their father and older brother had sent him to bring her home. Zimai sighed. She remarked that he had changed a lot lately, mentioning that she had never seen him care so much about other people before. She then told him that she was not going back home. She explained that she was heading to a friend's house instead, and added that her friend would be arriving to pick her up soon. Wenyu teased her by asking whether that friend was actually her girlfriend. Annoyed, Zimai insisted that her sexual orientation was completely normal, even if girls confessed to her frequently. He asked who the friend was. Suddenly, a woman casually draped an arm around Wenyu's shoulder. She introduced herself as Zimai's teacher. This startled Wenyu. The woman apologized for scaring him. Zimai introduced the two of them. She then asked her teacher not to treat Wenyu like an outsider. He greeted her hesitantly, wondering whether she was a teacher within the exorcist field. The woman introduced herself as Kei Chi-yoon. She extended her hand and mentioned that she often heard Zimai talk about him. The moment their hands touched, Wenyu's passive skills, restraint strap detection and restraint strap senses, activated automatically. The system revealed her information. She was a female Tier 2 exorcist with B rank strength, B++ rank speed, and A rank spirit. It also identified her heavenly drive as the SS rank retro monocle, currently bound to a train demon and a movie demon. Wenyu concluded that she was likely an upper mid-tier combatant among the exorcists, although he still did not understand what a heavenly drive actually was. He thought it made sense that Zimai referred to her as a teacher, but still felt it was a little disappointing. Chion was still nowhere near as powerful as the two disaster-level monsters within his own family. Meanwhile, Chion quietly observed him. Wenyu excused himself and claimed that he needed to go home, take a shower, and play games with his friends. Chion replied that she would take care of his sister, while Zimai was annoyed that he had simply abandoned her. The system updated his remaining quests. Main Quest 1, Phase 3, required him to deepen Blue Ark's trust in him. Main Quest 2, Phase 2, required him to establish a cooperative relationship with Ghost Clock and expand his network among evil espers. As Wenyu walked away, he noted that although he had completed the first phases of his first two quests, he had failed to finish investigating his sister's identity. Main Quest 3 required him to uncover what Suzimai was hiding. Main Quest 4 required him to discover the secret of Li Qingping, his best friend. He reasoned that the system quest had failed, because simply knowing that Chie was Blue Ark and Zhuoming was Ghost Clock was not enough. He still lacked a clear understanding of his sister's identity from the perspective of an exorcist. He decided that he would find an opportunity to secretly follow her later. Chion recalled the strange sensation she had experienced while shaking hands with Wenyu. Zimai addressed her as Commander and asked what was wrong. Chion replied that her older brother seemed unusual. Zimai looked confused. Chion quietly wondered what exactly was going on. Suddenly, a camera-headed monster emerged from her shadow and declared that they would find out once they tested him. Suddenly, the movie demon and the train demon appeared. Chion told Zimai to get on. Zimai questioned what could possibly be so unusual about her brother and teasingly asked the commander whether she had taken a liking to him. Chion asked why she would think that. She quietly realized that Zimai did not know her older brother was an esper. She decided not to interfere in their family affairs. She lit a cigarette and changed the subject. She told Zimai to pack her things and offered to let her stay over during summer vacation if she did not want to return home. Zimai complained that Chiun had stopped pretending the moment her older brother left. Chiun joked that they could not let him find out that his younger sister was spending the summer with an old smoker. Zimai said she did not care and asked whether they were using the train demon to travel to Tokyo that night. Chiun confirmed it and added that they still needed to meet with the Exorcist Association in Japan the following day. Zimai complained that she had not eaten dinner yet and wanted shrimp tempura. Commander Chiun agreed to treat her to anything she wanted. Now back at home, Wenyu checked his character attributes. His strength, speed, and spirit were all at C rank. The system informed him that his character, Black Pupa, still had 3 unassigned attribute points. He distributed them, raising both his strength and speed to C++ rank. He then switched to the skill tree panel. He examined the skill tree of the pitch-black restraint straps. Wenyu realized that completing main quests was currently the only way to obtain splitting points. Once he created a second character, he would still be able to continue even if one character died. By using the second character to expand his influence, he could safely continue creating even more characters. With that in mind, he selected the skill Restraint, Strap, Truth. The system confirmed that he had consumed 1 skill point to successfully learn the hidden branch skill, Restraint, Strap, Truth, which allowed him to force bound targets to speak the truth hidden within their hearts. With the permission for the next skill now unlocked, he concluded that he could settle the score with the director in a few days. He realized that the instructors could never have taken him away from the orphanage unnoticed without assistance from the staff. This led him to believe that the orphanage had definitely been involved in the incident. Thinking about his revenge, he declared that the old director should start praying to whatever god they believed in. He coldly hoped that the director would be able to give him a satisfactory answer. A system prompt notified him that he still had 1 unused skill point remaining and asked whether he wanted to continue developing his skill tree. The available hidden branch skill was Restraint Strap Camouflage, which required 1 skill point to unlock. This skill would allow his restraint straps to enter an invisible state and place him into stealth mode when wrapped around himself. However, entities with higher attributes could still detect him if he entered within a certain range. He liked the skill because it was ideal for following people unnoticed. He wondered if he was specializing too heavily after spending a skill point on the hidden branch to learn restraint strap camouflage. However, he accepted that this was the only path available to him for now since he could not effectively use combat-oriented branch skills. At the very least, it would allow him to easily deal with the weak, even if he could not defeat the strong. The system notified him that the learning permission for the next skill in the hidden branch had been unlocked. He read the description of the skill Restraint Strap Trap, which allowed him to set a trap that would instantly bind and entangle an enemy's legs. He found the skill description rather sinister and felt tempted to learn it, but unfortunately all of his skill points had already been spent. The system then revealed that this character's exclusive cultivation system was the Social Superstar system. The core rule of the system was that whenever he established cooperative relationships with more superhuman individuals, he would receive rewards through the exclusive cultivation system. His current progress showed that Quest 1 had already been completed, while Quest 2 required him to establish cooperative relationships with 3 superhuman individuals. His current progress stood at 1 out of 3 thanks to his connection with the anomalous known as Blue Arc. When you realized that it was about time for the instructor to visit him again, he hoped the instructor would bring more useful information this time. The system announced that complete splitting mode had been activated, allowing his consciousness to fully take over the game character's body 24 hours a day after a 1-hour loading period. It also noted that the number of currently loaded game character perspectives was 1. An announcement informed restricted level Esper number 1002, Jiming Huan, that an instructor had arrived and that he should prepare for interrogation. The instructor explained that they intended to let him interact with the other children. Ming Huan asked what exactly he meant by that. The instructor explained that he was referring to the other children being held there and suggested that they become friends. Ming Huan asked whether they were not afraid that the children would join forces and attempt a prison break. The instructor replied that there was nothing to worry about because they understood every child there very well, with the exception of him. Ming Huan answered that he barely understood himself either. He then reminded the instructor about the promise made the previous day to explain the other 2 superhuman races. The instructor agreed, stating that he had originally planned to introduce those 2 factions today. He added that some of their people had begun to suspect that the boy was not actually an Esper, but rather an anomaly envoy or an exorcist. Mingwan was startled when the system suddenly unlocked the key intel system. The system explained that learning more about the superhuman world would increase the chances of creating stronger characters with greater potential. His current worldview, development progress was displayed. The Esper branch stood at 40%, the Exorcist branch at 5%, and the Anomaly Envoy branch at 1%. The system noted that future progress would depend entirely on the value and importance of the intelligence he acquired. At that moment, Mingwan realized that delaying character creation had been the right decision. Otherwise, he would have missed out on major advantages. He decided that before creating his game character, he would first coax as much information as possible out of the instructor, hoping it would unlock rarer character profiles. The instructor behind the glass then asked Mingwan which topic he wanted to hear about first. Mingwan began to answer. Suddenly, a splitting headache struck him. He wondered what was happening as the pain felt like something was drilling directly into his skull. The system informed him that complete splitting mode had been activated, allowing him to simultaneously experience the perspectives of both his original body and all active game characters. It also noted that he could disable the feature through the character panel if he found it difficult to adapt. He noticed that the collar showed no reaction. His use of a superpower had remained completely undetected, just as he had expected. The instructor asked what was wrong. Mingwan brushed it off and claimed that he only felt dizzy from sleeping too much while confined. He then changed the subject and requested information about anomaly envoys instead. The instructor agreed to tell him the story. He explained that a long time ago, a whale lived in this world, and hidden within its belly was a secret. Mingwan interrupted and asked him to stop speaking as if he were telling a bedtime story and just talk normally. The instructor agreed to change his storytelling style. He revealed that anomaly envoys rarely lived in crowded cities. Instead, they resided within a vast world hidden inside the belly of a giant whale known as Chikazeno. From the whale's appearance alone, no one would ever guess how enormous the world within its body truly was. This hidden realm was called the Miniature Garden in the Whale, a place that contained maritime cities and royal palaces where the royal family of the anomaly envoys lived. Mingwan interrupted again and stated that he did not care where they lived. He wanted to know what anomaly envoys actually were and what abilities they possessed. The instructor explained that every anomaly envoy awakened upon reaching a certain age. After awakening, they obtained their own anomaly compendium, which helped them locate nearby anomaly secret realms. The investigator added that anomaly fragments were hidden within those secret realms. If an envoy successfully conquered the anomaly through their own strength, they would obtain the corresponding fragment. Their combat style revolved around using the compendium to stimulate and draw out the power contained within those fragments. Minghuan then asked what anomaly fragments were actually used for. The investigator answered that anomaly fragments were stored inside the compendiums and were divided into 4 grades according to their strength: mythic level, epic level, folklore level, and ordinary level. The strongest among them were the mythic level anomalies, which carried the aura of world myths. Very few mythic level fragments had ever appeared throughout history. Recorded examples included fragments connected to figures such as Zeus, king of the gods, Yamata no Orochi, Ra the sun god, and Hades, god of the underworld. Minghuan then asked about epoch-level anomalies. The instructor explained that he had probably heard many of the names associated with epoch-level anomalies, such as Santa Claus, the Titanic, and the Night Parade of 100 Demons. He added that these legends and historical events became anomalies after being passed down through generations. Furthermore, as long as an anomaly existed, an anomaly fragment could be created from it, allowing anomaly envoys to draw upon the anomaly's power. He added that the strongest envoys possessed epoch-level fragments, granting them the power to awaken history itself. He added that possessing a mythic-level anomaly fragment was equivalent to inheriting a portion of an ancient deity's power. With that level of strength, destroying an entire country would only be a matter of time. A system notification appeared and confirmed that he had obtained key intelligence regarding the anomaly envoy worldview. The branch worldview progress jumped from 1% to 30%, significantly increasing the probability of generating a higher potential anomaly envoy character during character creation. Minghuan realized that the instructor had genuinely been telling the truth. He then remarked that anomaly envoys sounded even more dangerous than he was. However, the instructor countered that very few envoys in history had ever managed to conquer mythic-level anomalies. He emphasized that there was a fundamental difference between possessing the power to destroy a country and possessing the power to destroy the world. Minghuan sighed and remarked that he was apparently nothing more than a lone star of calamity. The instructor replied that they were only trying to help him. Minghuan asked who exactly "we" referred to, noting that he still had no idea where they came from. The instructor claimed that the information had to remain confidential for the time being. Minghuan then asked whether they belonged to the Anomalist Association. The instructor clarified that their work was far more dangerous and far nobler than that of the Anomalist Association. He also added that they did not belong to either the Anomaly Envoy faction or the Exorcist faction. Minghuan realized that it would be impossible to extract a direct answer from him. The instructor decided to stop discussing anomaly envoys and move on to the topic of exorcists, but an announcement suddenly interrupted them. Disaster level Esper number 10,059, Lan Yuan Liuli, had requested a meeting with the instructor. Upon hearing that it was a disaster level Esper, Minghuan wondered how someone randomly thrown into this place could turn out to be such a monster. He realized that terrifying individuals were everywhere and concluded that he would not be able to gather information about exorcists from the instructor today. The instructor ended the session and promised to continue another time if Minghuan was still interested. Minghuan agreed. Minghuan's preparations were nearly complete. He now possessed an understanding of the other 2 races besides the exorcists. This knowledge had greatly increased his chances of generating a high-potential character. The system prompted him to consume 3 splitting points to create a brand new game character in the real world. A dice roll sequence began and instructed him to choose a number between 1 and 6. He selected number 6. The system congratulated him for winning the dice game. As a reward, he was granted 1 additional character profile choice during the character creation phase. He was then prompted to select one of the 3 available profiles to serve as his second game character in the real world. The system presented the first character profile, Ozawa Nana, a 17-year-old female Esper with C+ rank attributes. Her background revealed that she was a Japanese geisha who sought revenge against the Yakuza after they murdered her father and sold her into Kabukicho, where she eventually awakened her Thorns ability. He considered the option, but felt that the background was far too complicated. Although he did not mind playing as a female character, he ultimately rejected the profile because he feared that inheriting her traumatic memories might distort his own worldview and even affect his personal identity. The system then displayed the second character profile, Al Pacino, a 25-year-old male anomaly envoy. While he liked the idea of becoming an anomaly envoy after hearing the instructor's introduction to their world, he immediately noticed that the character's base attributes were pitifully low at D rank. He concluded that this option was not particularly appealing either. Suddenly, a warning message flashed. The entire system interface began to glitch. The second character was about to be created when he was suddenly met with a warning prompt. A system notification warned him that activating complete splitting mode to create a second game character would divide his consciousness across 3 bodies, further intensifying the sensation of being torn apart. It advised him to carefully consider disabling complete splitting mode before proceeding. He dismissed the warning, believing that managing 3 minds at once was nothing to fear. He reasoned that if he could not even handle this, then he would never be able to save his original body or achieve his revenge. His eyes glowed as complete splitting mode activated. The warning messages disappeared. He prepared to inspect the third character profile and hoped that it was not an Esper. A system prompt informed him that a rare character had appeared among the generated options, specifically from the Exorcist category. He was shocked by his terrible luck since the Exorcist class was the one he understood the least. The third character profile appeared before him. The profile revealed a 19-year-old male named Xia Pingzhou. He possessed an initial evaluation of C++ rank, a standard prajna talent, and belonged to the Tier 1 Exorcist class, allowing him to fight using a soul-crystallized heavenly drive. Furthermore, the character had already formed a contract with a shadow demon. A burning contract materialized before him. He realized that it was the actual demon contract connected to the character. The system confirmed that character profile number 3, Xia Pingzhou, had been successfully selected and would enter the real world as his second game character. The system presented 2 growth main quests for the selected character: Wild Hunt and Righteous Exorcist. He immediately chose the first option, noting that the name of the second quest instantly killed his interest. After selecting the quest, the system generated a unique character cultivation system. It then instructed him to wait while it generated his second game character, Xia Pingzhou, into the real world and adjusted reality to make his existence appear completely natural. The system initialized the login process for Tokyo, Japan, and began the final countdown. The perspective shifted to Shiba Park in Minato Ward, Tokyo. Pingzhou looked at Tokyo Tower and confirmed his location. A system prompt announced that the memories of the second character were loading. The system warned that when the 5-second countdown ended, the memories of game character number 2, Xia Pingzhou, would be poured directly into his mind and advised him to prepare himself mentally. Once the loading finished, the memories flooded into his consciousness. Frustrated, he realized it followed the exact same process as when he created his first character. Xia Pingzhou had worked as an exorcist for 2 years. During one mission, his teammate, Traffic Light, suddenly massacred the rest of the team for no apparent reason. Not long afterward, the exorcist known as Jack the Ripper slaughtered Pingzhou's entire family. From that moment on, revenge became the only purpose left in his life. After investigating for a year, Pingzhou discovered that Jack the Ripper belonged to the White Crow Brigade. The White Crow Brigade was a 12-member criminal organization composed of espers, anomaly envoys, and exorcists. They carried out crimes all over the world. In order to join the brigade and uncover the true identity of his enemy, Pingzhou contacted the brigade's commander through the dark web and arranged a meeting in the near future. Minghuan sighed after receiving yet another identity driven by hatred and revenge. According to Pingzhou's memories, his source of power came from 4 chess pieces. They were the king, queen, pawn, and rook. Whenever a chess piece was activated, the corresponding unit could be summoned into reality and would obey his commands completely. Every exorcist possessed a unique destiny weapon known as a heavenly drive. Exorcists were divided into 3 tiers, and with each advancement in tier, they could sign a contract with a demon that would merge into their weapon. The primary duty of an exorcist was literally to hunt and exorcise demons. When Pingzhou's heavenly drive awakened, its ability fluctuations reached SS rank. Such a phenomenon was extremely rare. He compared the new character to Black Pupa and immediately noticed the difference. Black Pupa specialized in reconnaissance and support, making him unsuitable as a frontline combatant. If this second character's system focused on direct combat, it would perfectly compensate for his weaknesses. He opened Xia Pingzhou's skill tree. 3 branches appeared before him. Branch 1 was Swarm, which allowed him to recruit pawns. Branch 2 was Peace Evolution, which required skill points to unlock. Branch 3 was Soul, which contained a skill called Demon Hunter. He noticed that the system contained a surprisingly large number of branches. The Peace Evolution skill upgraded all chess pieces from Black Iron rank to Bronze rank, increasing their base attributes, while the Demon Hunter skill granted a chance to obtain a unique, non-respawning chess piece after helping kill a demon. As he walked through the streets, he realized that this character specialized in summoning. Suddenly, his phone rang. He received an anonymous text message directing him to Private Room 3 in an underground bar located in Eschome, Tokyo. He was certain that the message had come from the White Crow Brigade, making this his very first meeting with them. He headed toward the underground bar. Even though it was still morning, the place remained crowded with people drinking and socializing. He wondered whether they had spent the entire night drinking, though he had to admit they seemed surprisingly energetic. He stopped outside Private Room number 3. Inside were members of the White Crow Brigade, double S-rank criminals wanted by the Anomalist Association. Ming-wan, acting as Pingzhou, considered the operation a success as long as he did not die too quickly. He hoped that his current game character could survive until he created a third one. Otherwise, all of his efforts would return to a restricted state. He reached out to open the door. Before he could touch it, the door suddenly opened from the inside. A young woman dressed in a kimono stood in the doorway. She turned toward him with sharp crimson eyes. Pingzhou arrived at the room where a woman in a kimono stood in the doorway. The woman asked whether he was the newcomer. He confirmed that he was. At the same time, he wondered whether she was a member of the brigade. A voice from inside asked Ayase whether a guest had arrived. A man explained that he was the replacement for number 12. He added that the commander wanted them to evaluate whether his abilities were good enough. One of the men then invited him inside. A blonde man introduced himself as Enlunce, number 11 of the brigade. Another man with a dark, square-shaped head introduced himself as Robert, number 7 of the brigade. He said that everyone called him Radish Head and encouraged Pingzhou to do the same. Ayase remained silent as she listened to them. Suddenly, she activated her power and shredded a thick book into pieces. Countless scraps of paper floated around her. Pingzhou realized that her ability allowed her to control paper-based objects. He introduced himself and stated that he had come to take over number 12's position. Enlunce checked the time and remarked that it was almost time for them to leave. He added that there was something they needed to handle on the way. Then he explained that the commander had ordered them to kill everyone in the bar before departing. Some of those people were planning to participate in an auction a week later, which conflicted with the brigade's schedule. Pingzhou asked whether his initiation test was to kill everyone outside. Enlunce replied that it was merely something they would do in passing. He noted that if the commander's interest in Pingzhou was genuine, then killing those people would not even qualify as a test. At most, he would only need to decide which pose looked the coolest while doing it. Enlunce then summoned a slot machine. Pingzhou wondered whether that was his superpower and what kind of effect it possessed. Enlunce decided to spin the slot machine first to see whether it could save them some effort. The slot machine pulled its lever. The reels stopped on 3 missile symbols. Enlunce commented that the result seemed a little too high profile. Radish Head told Pingzhou that it was time to leave. Pingzhou realized that Robert possessed teleportation abilities. A door appeared in front of them. Ayase warned him that they would all be blown away if they remained there any longer. Enlunce grinned and told him that they were heading somewhere fun. Pingzhou asked whether they were no longer planning to kill everyone in the bar. Enlunce smiled and asked what he was talking about. As they walked away, he casually added that those targets were already dead. Pingzhou watched the slot machine. It glowed with intense energy. The machine shattered into pieces before reassembling itself into a massive missile. He watched as it was launched. He now had a rough understanding of Enlunce's ability. He concluded that no one inside the bar had likely survived. He realized that not only the bar, but also the alleyways and nearby residential blocks probably had no survivors either. Behind them, the missile detonated as they departed from the scene. He asked what came next. They arrived at an abandoned office building. Pingzhou asked why they had brought him there. Enlunce explained that they were standing inside an office building located in Minato Ward, Tokyo. He shared that the building had been abandoned after Japanese authorities forced the company to shut down because 2 employees had suddenly died from overwork. Pingzhou thought that the overwhelming corporate slave energy was so strong that it made him wonder whether a corporate slave demon had been born there. He then asked Enlunce why he had brought him to this location. A grotesque floating mass appeared behind Enlunce. He replied that it was time for Pingzhou to do what exorcists did best. Pingzhou wondered whether a demon was present. Enlunce explained that they would remain behind and observe while he fought the demon. They would then evaluate his performance afterward. He warned Pingzhou that if more than 2 members were dissatisfied with his performance, his initiation into the brigade would be rejected, and they would kill him on the spot. Enlunce then stated that his opponent had already appeared and asked whether he intended to face it. With this, our MC had successfully made contact with the White Crow Brigade and learned that his initiation test was to battle the working demon. A system notification announced the main quest. He needed to arrive at the meeting place and successfully pass the White Crow Brigade's initiation test. He realized that he had no choice but to continue. He unzipped his jacket ready to give it a try. The grotesque demon began to take shape. It was a massive creature with 3 heads and a cup of coffee in one hand. Anlunz introduced his opponent as the working demon. Anlunz explained that it was an anomalous entity born from the resentment of 2 employees who had died from overwork. Ayase accused him of making things up since none of them had ever seen a demon like that before. He admitted that he had only wanted an excuse to say the line once. Pingzhou did not find the demon frightening. Instead, it radiated an overwhelming sense of sadness. He felt sympathy for corporate workers. He could easily imagine them staying up late every night while working endless overtime when they were alive. Then, even after death, they became an entity carrying a cup of coffee and a keyboard, only to be used as a source of experience points. He told the demon to come at him as he activated his Heavenly Drive chess skill. The demon charged forward, swinging its keyboard while screaming for a pay raise. Pingzhou recalled how the chess pieces were meant to be used and activated one of them. A glowing chess piece shattered apart. The working demon brought its weapon crashing down while shouting about performance evaluations. The heavy attack slammed into the ground, but the demon was left confused. Pingzhou smiled as the giant keyboard crumbled into pieces. A system prompt announced that the basic chess piece, the king, had materialized. The system explained that although the king possessed no combat ability, it granted the player immunity to all physical and mental attacks while it remained on the battlefield. Any enemy wishing to harm the player would first need to destroy the king piece. Anlunz commented that his Heavenly Drive was interesting. Ayase remarked that she had never seen an ability quite like it before. Radish Head noted that the power was unusual and understood why the commander had taken an interest in him. The demon became enraged. It unleashed a violent barrage of attacks, smashing the surrounding area apart. Pingzhou stood amid the destruction and muttered that it was useless. From a distance, the 3 observed the battle, with Anlunz noting that the manifested ability was actually quite impressive. The demon was on the verge of going berserk as the king stood before it. Suddenly, the demon hurled its coffee cup at the king. Pingzhou was alarmed. Realizing that his defense depended entirely on keeping the king alive, Pingzhou hurriedly summoned a pawn to protect it. A system notification confirmed that a basic chess piece, the pawn, had materialized. The system described it as a unit with ordinary attributes armed with a longsword. It noted that although its movements were somewhat clumsy, its greatest advantage was its ability to overwhelm opponents through numbers. The pawn intercepted the coffee cup. The pawn stood its ground with sword in hand. The demon launched another frenzied assault while screaming about overtime. The pawn responded with a powerful series of slashes that caught the demon completely off guard. Then it charged straight at the demon. Explosions echoed throughout the room. Pingzhou noted that if a single pawn could already hold its own against a high-level demon, then the tactical value of this ability would become enormous once fully developed. He summoned another chess piece. A system prompt notified him that the basic chess piece, the rook, had materialized. The system explained that the rook was capable of firing devastating cannonballs, though it required a certain amount of time to reload after each shot. The rook unleashed a massive beam of light. The blast swallowed the high-level demon. A brilliant explosion erupted across the battlefield. When the smoke cleared, the heavily injured demon let out a painful groan. Pingzhou realized that the battle was nearly over. A system prompt notified him that the basic chess piece, the queen, had materialized. The system explained that she was the most agile among the 4 basic chess pieces, wielding both a short dagger and a long dagger as her weapons. Only the king knew why she possessed such skills. The queen immediately rushed toward the target. The demon threw a heavy punch while ranting about performance evaluations. In an instant, the queen gracefully evaded the attack and slashed the demon. The demon stared in confusion as its arm was cut into pieces. The queen prepared to strike again. Suddenly, the queen slashed the creature, causing it to scream in agony. A system notification appeared, confirming that a demon had been killed and that the progress quest for Game Character 2's exclusive cultivation system, Winter of the Wild Hunt, had been updated. The demon's severed head continued muttering complaints about performance evaluations. Pingzhou wondered why the queen fought like an assassin and questioned whether the Heavenly Drive had made a mistake. He then remembered that in chess, pawns that reached the opposite end of the board could also be promoted into queens. He turned toward the brigade members and asked whether he was now qualified to join. Ayase voted in his favor, saying that his Heavenly Drive was fun. Anlunz agreed that it was interesting. He admitted that he had never seen an exorcist with abilities like that before. Since the commander had already shown interest in him, Anlunz decided to cast his vote in support as well. Then Radish Head pointed out that despite his growth potential, Pingzhou was still far too weak and would probably die if he stayed with them. In the end, he chose to abstain since 2 approval votes had already been cast. And Lunce countered that there was always the option of simply not letting him join the brigade. He then smiled and asked whether that meant Pingzhou would have to die instead. And Lunce remarked that the commander had said that if they were not satisfied with him, they should simply kill him on the spot. Radish Head replied that he had a point. Pingzhou stared at them in disbelief. Ayase told them to stop scaring the rookie. She added that the vote was 2-0, which meant the rookie had officially joined the team. She pulled something out from her sleeve, saying that it was a gift from the commander. Pingzhou became curious. She tossed it toward him. It was a crow. She explained that the brigade emblem could be placed wherever he wanted. She mentioned that her own emblem was located on her shoulder. He asked whether the back of his hand would be a good location. The crow transformed into a mark on that spot. Lunce welcomed him and said that the brigade's number 12 member had finally arrived, filling the position that had been vacant for so long. He then warned Pingzhou that the other members did not have the best tempers, so he should be careful when dealing with them. Pingzhou became distracted by the system screens that appeared. The interface displayed that the main quest had been completed. He had successfully arrived at the meeting location and passed the Crow Brigade's initiation test. Another notification appeared, informing him that he had received rewards consisting of 1 skill point, 1 splitting point, and 1 attribute point. A final notification followed, stating that Main Quest 1 had been updated. His next objective was to participate in the Crow Brigade's 2-month interguild auction robbery on July 21st and survive the operation. He felt that robbing an auction did not sound particularly dangerous. He reasoned that there should not be anyone in Japan capable of stopping the brigade's members, allowing him to simply tag along and coast through the mission. And Lunce then announced that it was time to leave. The rest of the members had not arrived in Tokyo yet. He suggested that they get something to eat before temporarily disbanding. Ayase declared that she was hungry and wanted food. Radish Head told them that they should get moving since he happened to have left a portal at a ramen shop the last time he visited. And Lunce asked what Pingzhou was staring at and addressed him as number 12. He pulled up his hood and told them that they should go. Several system notifications appeared before him. The first notification explained that the character-exclusive cultivation system assigned to him was one of the Wild Hunt system's exclusive cultivation paths. The second notification stated that by killing what the system classified as demons and superhuman gods, he could obtain rewards through the cultivation system. A third notification displayed his current progress. His cultivation quest required him to kill a C rank or higher demon or a C rank or higher superhuman god. Quest progress would be measured by the total number of demons and superhuman gods he killed. Another notification detected that the cultivation quest had not yet officially begun because there were no demons or superhuman gods in Tokyo. It instructed him to leave Tokyo, hunt any C rank or higher demons or any C rank or higher superhuman gods, and then return to receive another quest reward and an additional attribute point. He felt that the mission sounded simple enough. His plan was to tag along with the brigade and kill a few demons along the way. He then opened his personal panel and reviewed his character's attributes. Xia Pingzhou was a rare 19-year-old character. He did not yet possess a nickname because he had not become famous. His strength was D rank, while both his speed and spirit were C++ rank. He knew it would not be long before people stopped calling him Number 12 and gave him a proper nickname within the White Crow Brigade. As for his skill tree, he concluded that allocating attribute points was straightforward. Since the character specialized in summoning, there was no need to invest in strength. Focusing on speed and spirit would be enough. A system notification appeared, stating that his speed attribute had increased from C rank to B rank. Another notification followed, announcing that his spirit attribute had also increased from C rank to B rank. Suddenly, he sensed footsteps approaching from behind. The others noticed them as well. Someone stated that they had originally detected the fluctuations of a demon and had come to investigate. Upon arriving, however, it appeared that someone else had already dealt with the problem. That person was Qiyun. Zimai asked whether those people were exorcists as well, and Qiyun replied that they were not. Pingzhou was startled when he saw Wenyu's little sister, and realized that her exorcist teacher was standing beside her as well. Radish had commented that it seemed they had unexpected guests. Ayase asked whether they should kill them, and Lunce replied that since they had already been seen, there was no helping it. Although Ming Wan was currently using the game character Xie Pingzhou rather than his first game character Gu Wenyu, he was deeply concerned. Pingzhou had met Qiyun 2 years earlier, and both of them possessed SS rank heavenly drives. Within China's Exorcist Association, they had once been regarded as highly anticipated rising stars. It was only natural that they knew of each other. He realized that his situation was terrible. If his little sister died at the hands of the brigade members, he would lose a valuable, long-term main quest. He quickly concluded that he needed to find a way to help his little sister escape while attracting as little suspicion as possible from the brigade. As for Chiyun, he did not particularly care whether she lived or died. Ayase muttered that she was hungry. She decided to kill them, so they could hurry up and go eat. Chiyun immediately became cautious when she saw them preparing to make a move. Pingzhou remarked that he had the impression the woman wearing the hat was a member of the Exorcist Association. He added that her heavenly drive was a pair of retro monocles, although he could not remember the exact name. He then asked whether anyone else had heard of her. An Lunse recalled that the Exorcist Association was fairly well known. The commander knew her, and it seemed he had even considered inviting her to join the brigade at one point. Pingzhou asked how that turned out. An Lunse replied that the commander never said it directly, but it appeared that she had rejected the offer. He shared that she later established an exorcist team known as the Ghost Train Crew, which was named after the train demon she had contracted with. Ayase was growing impatient because they kept talking. She asked whether they were going to kill them or not. Radish Head suggested that they forget about it since the commander had specifically instructed them not to cause a commotion before the auction began. Since there was no benefit in starting a war with two exorcists, it would be best to leave them alone. Anlunch agreed and urged everyone to get moving. Ice immediately looked forward to getting something to eat, but Pingzhou requested permission to spar with the woman. Anlunch understood that Pingzhou had only just joined them and was eager to prove himself, but a fight would create far too much commotion. He told him that they should leave since they had other matters to handle and did not want to anger the commander. Pingzhou agreed and followed them. He confirmed that their plan was to carry out the hijacking of the Tokyo Underground auction in 1 week. Anlunse confirmed it and added that the operation would begin at that time. Pingzhou asked whether there was no need to prepare beforehand. Anlunse replied that the commander usually provided them with the details only 5 minutes before an operation started. He could only help those two up to that point. Anlunse explained that anyone lacking even that level of execution ability would have died 10,000 times over within their organization. He added that the commander was particularly interested in Pingzhou's abilities. They hoped that he would stick around and die a little slower than the previous number 12. As he stepped through the portal, Pingzhou wondered whether Zimai and Qiyun would also attend the auction. He reflected that, given his little sister's strength, she would most likely participate in a high-stakes event like that. Even if he was acting as an undercover agent within the brigade, he probably would not be able to stop her from getting involved. The two of them watched the portal disappear. Zimai could not believe that the group had actually turned around and left. Curious, she asked whether anyone knew the backgrounds of the people they had just encountered. Chiyun replied that they belonged to the White Crow Brigade. She recalled seeing a photograph of one of them before. The little girl wearing the kimono was the eldest daughter of the Ayase family in Japan. She later received an invitation from the commander of the White Crow Brigade. Afterward, she left her family and became a member of the brigade. Zimai was stunned when she realized that those people had intended to kill them only moments ago. Chiyun confirmed it. She admitted that she did not know why the brigade members had ultimately chosen not to attack. She then added that every single member of the brigade was incredibly powerful. If they had truly intended to fight, defeating them would have been extremely difficult. She realized that the concerns of the Japanese Exorcist Association regarding the White Crow Brigade were completely justified. The brigade had personally arrived in Tokyo and set its sights on the underground auction jointly hosted by the association and several major underworld families. Zimai realized that it was already too late for her to quit the crew. She asked whether they should accept the commission to protect the normal operation of the auction. Chiyun replied that since they were already there, leaving now would be a waste. She suggested reporting everything that had just happened to the association. She expected that the Japanese side would most likely strengthen the auction's defensive forces even further. Zimai asked who they could possibly call in as reinforcements. She reasoned that, whether they were exorcists or espers, Japan was relatively weak. There were very few individuals truly worth paying attention to. Chiyun agreed that the concern was valid, but she pointed out that the Japanese Association could also request assistance from neighboring countries and ask them to send reinforcements. And one example of that was Blue Arc. Meanwhile, at homemade tonkotsu ramen, Ayase handed Pingzhou the contact information of the White Crow Brigade members and informed him that they would contact him once everyone had arrived in Tokyo. With that taken care of, they announced that the meeting was over and dismissed everyone. The group said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. Pingzhou knew that he would need to remain with the group for a long time. The White Crow Brigade was becoming increasingly notorious, and sooner or later, they might attract the attention of Rainbow Wings. As long as he could gather intelligence about Rainbow Wings, Even if it was only information about the superpower of a single member, he would have valuable leverage for future trades with Chie. He realized that the first thing he needed was a place for Xia Pingzhou to stay. He decided to find a random hotel and live there temporarily, at his chosen hotel. He sat on the bed while checking the system panel. Several system notifications appeared before him. The first notification informed him that the character skill tree system's first branch, Swarm, which allowed him to recruit pawns, currently had an unknown skill available to learn. Branch 2, Dance, allowed chess pieces to evolve. The evolution process required him to spend a total of 3 skill points in other branches before he could unlock it. Learning the branch itself required 1 skill point. A third notification revealed another skill branch called Soul, which was related to demon hunters. It also required 1 skill point to unlock an unknown skill. Pingzhou concluded that, no matter how he looked at it, the first option appeared to be the most useful. A system notification appeared, informing him that he had successfully learned the branch skill Swarm skill, Recruit Pawns. The next skill in the Swarm branch, Pawn Training, was now available to learn. It would grant his pawns shields and allow them to activate the command shield wall during combat. A final notification announced that, through Swarm, Recruit Pawns, the number of pawns he could command had increased to 2. Pingzhou was satisfied. Having 2 additional chess pieces made his king feel much more secure. He opened the quest panel. The first main quest required him to accompany the White Crow Brigade during the Tokyo Underground Auction operation on July 21st and survive the mission. The reward would be 3 skill points, 1 evolution point, 1 splitting point, and 1 attribute point. The second main quest instructed him to locate the vice commander of the evil exorcists who had murdered his parents. The culprit was Jack the Ripper. The reward for completing the quest would be 1 skill point, 1 attribute point, and 1 splitting point. The third main quest directed him to search for clues regarding his former teammate Traffic Light. He noticed that the reward for the first main quest included 3 skill points. It was the first time he had ever seen such a generous reward. This led him to believe that the mission would be extremely difficult to survive. He then turned his attention to the second main quest. Jack the Ripper had appeared during a 4-region squad mission 2 years ago. The objective required him to locate Jack the Ripper's whereabouts. The reward for completing that quest would be 1 skill point, 1 attribute point, and 1 splitting point. Then, there was the third quest. According to Xia Pingzhou's memories, during a 4-person squad mission 2 years earlier, his teammate Traffic Light had suddenly gone insane. Traffic Light had looked as though he were possessed by a crazed murderer, slaughtering the other 3 teammates one after another. Blood splattered everywhere as the massacre unfolded. After that incident, Traffic Light vanished without a trace for a long time. He eventually transformed into a monster that specialized in hunting exorcists. Every time he successfully killed a victim, he would leave behind a hexagram symbol. Beside it, he would write a message in Latin that read, Sodalitas Salvifica, or Salvation Society. He reflected that the name Salvation Society sounded like a very formidable organization. Even so, he decided not to dwell on it for now. There were still many things he needed to accomplish. Therefore, while waiting for the brigade's next notice, he would leave this body resting at the hotel. Now that he had a second body as insurance, he planned to use Black Pupa to investigate the orphanage in hopes of uncovering clues about the laboratory. Minghuan slowly opened his eyes. The system notified him that Main Quest 3 had been completed. The quest involved investigating what his younger sister, Zimai, was hiding. As a reward, he obtained 1 splitting point, 1 skill point, and 1 attribute point. The system informed him that Main Quest 3 had been updated. His new objective was to establish a cooperative relationship with Ghost Train crew member Zimai, and subsequently build connections within the Exorcist Association. After considering the situation, he realized that it was actually possible to use his second game character to complete the main quests of his first character. Originally, he had planned to use Black Pupa to secretly follow Suzumai. However, thanks to a twist of fate, he could skip that entire step. He decided to allocate all of his newly obtained attribute points into speed. He also planned to learn Restraint Strap Suppression. A notification confirmed that he had successfully learned the Ruthless Branch skill, Restraint Strap Suppression. The system explained that if an enemy possessed supernatural abilities and was suffering from an abnormal status effect, he could temporarily suppress those abilities. Another notification informed him that he had unlocked the next skill in the branch, Superpower Theft. The system then provided additional details regarding Superpower Theft. After activation, he could bind an Esper using restraint straps. If the target possessed any supernatural abilities, he could steal one of them. The stolen ability would disappear after a single use. It would only function at 50% of its original effectiveness, with its power scaling according to Black Pupa's attributes. The stolen ability could be stored for a maximum of 240 hours. He exclaimed that he would have unlocked this branch much earlier if he had known about it. Another system notification appeared. It explained that creating the next game character would require a total of 9 splitting points, while he currently possessed only 2. Once he accumulated all 9 points, he would be able to create another game character in the real world. He noticed that the requirement had increased dramatically. He wondered whether the system was worried about turning him schizophrenic. The system detected that he had remained in Lijiang City for 3 consecutive days. As a result, the city's event cards had been unlocked. At regular intervals, a card event could appear somewhere within the city, and completing it would grant him an event card. A holographic map appeared before him. The system explained that he would be able to see an event card exclamation mark floating above the city skyline. He needed to travel to the location beneath the symbol and find the event trigger point in order to enter the card event. He found it amusing that there were now side quests as well. The world felt more and more like a game. He immediately recognized the location marked by the event card exclamation mark. It was the orphanage library. Back when he lived at the orphanage, his favorite place had always been the library. Coincidentally, it was also the most mysterious area in the entire orphanage, the basement. He remembered that the iron door leading down there had been secured with several layers of locks. Once he had wandered down the basement stairs and attempted to push open the iron door. He had been caught red-handed by the orphanage director. As punishment, he was locked inside the attic above the library for 3 days. Later, when the matter was brought up again, the director claimed that the basement was an underground shelter built for wartime evacuations. However, it had supposedly remained unopened for many years and was filled with dust and filth. The director claimed that children were forbidden from entering because they might develop respiratory illnesses. A possibility suddenly occurred to him. Behind the iron door was the library basement, and that his original body had been hidden beneath the orphanage all along rather than being transferred somewhere else.